Okay, so this video I want to talk about starting with meaning in our analysis and theory building. What do I mean by that? All right, you should have just transitioned out of the Marx, Durkheim, Weber chapter or section. The reason that I like those guys, aside from just being the Holy Trinity, is they work well together. They have a very mechanistic understanding. Marx's is the most mechanistic, meaning all these pieces of society just work together like a machine. Marx explicitly says all things cultural come from the economy. The economy drives everything, and that's Marx's take. Weber and Durkheim are a little more nuanced than that, and in fact a lot more nuanced than that. But let's think about Weber. Weber, the whole point of Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism is that, in fact, religion, which is an element of culture, an element of meaning making, can influence the economy. And so for Weber, he's saying, well, yeah, sometimes it's mechanistic, and sometimes it's culture, it's meaning. There's a fair element of that in Durkheim too. Durkheim has this huge book called "The Elementary Forms of Religious Life." I don't think it's here. No, it must be upstairs. Anyway, and I really like that one, but it's definitely a meaning first kind of analysis. Less famous than some of his other works, but if we can talk about it if you guys are interested. But this whole section, we're doing symbolic interaction is usually the catch-all term for these understandings, these analyses that start with meaning, and so, well, let's see. And so in this section, I've got Mead, I've got Goffman, I've got Berger and Luckman. Those are all great examples. And then the next section, starting week 10, my dates are off. Anyway, starting week 10, we're going to look at specifics. We've got gender and sexuality, race and ethnicity, and culture and media. And the reason that I'm relating these two is this section's whole bit is about understanding at the general level, or maybe fundamental level, how meaning first analyses work, and what some of the more kind of seminal works are for understanding those meaning first analyses. Then the whole next section is, well, what if we take a subset of that? So if we take a meaning first analysis and want to analyze it and want to analyze sex and gender identity, or queer theory, those are starting from, okay, I'm going to work from a position of, if I want to understand the world, if I want to reinterpret the world as a gay person, as a woman, as from a sexuality perspective, what's that going to look like, right? So that's a subset of meaning. If I want to look at the world from an ethnic standpoint, what's that look? That's a subset of meaning. And so those are fun. But let's get back here. We'll go a little bit deeper on the videos that I do for each of these, but Mead was a philosopher, social philosopher. I want to say UChicago, but I'd have to double check that. And he's writing in the 20s, and his whole thing is he's wondering, if you take a naked baby, right? You take the naked baby, you pop him out. How does that baby get to be you and me sitting here discussing existentialism, right? there's a learning process there that, you end with religion, social theory, existentialism, but in order to do that, you need to understand what those ideas mean, and in order to understand that, you need to be able to understand complex, abstract ideas in general. In order to do that, you need to understand language, and in order to do that, you have to learn the language. So how does that naked baby start learning language? And Mead hypothesizes and tries to think through how that's happening, and it comes down to learning the signs and symbols that go with his or her language and culture, and being able to communicate in those signs and symbols. And so it's, for him, that signs and symbols, that's the interpretive, the meaning understanding, and from there you get the rest of culture and society. Goffman's a little bit different. He's writing mid-century, and he's not quite as explicitly about meaning as either Mead or Berger and Luckman, but he's working in that genre. One of his books is Stigma, and he wants to know, what does it mean to be a person with a stigma, to go through life with an external, if you will, judgment upon you that everybody sees and everybody understands. He wonders about power as it's exercised in different kind of environments. And while some of that could be argued to be structural, he's still thinking about it in terms of, what does it mean for the lived experience of those people. So it's definitely at the individual level. And then Berger and Luckman. So where Mead is interested in how an individual baby starts developing his or her vocabulary and knowledge that builds into what becomes the world. Berger and Luckman, their text is called The Social Construction of Reality, and it kind of takes on where, if you will, Mead leaves off. By that I mean, okay, so if you assume that the language is already intact, but we're communicating with each other, and really this is phenomenology. Brain fart. Applied to sociology, but if I look out at the world and I have an understanding of the world, where does that understanding come from? Of course, I do have sensory data streaming in. What I can see, what I hear. But in and of itself, that's just raw data. And, understanding that what I hear in the background is the washing machine means that I understand the category of washing machine and as a for instance. And so that understanding of the world, that, man, this is difficult. So the reality I have in my brain is actually a model of whatever God's reality out there is. And that reality in my brain is built through the sensory input coming in and the language through which I understand the world and then recreate what that sensory input means. And I don't get that language from myself. I get it in communication with other people. And so as we're talking and communicating, we're building a shared reality. Now, it's different than whatever, again, God's objective reality would be, because, we're not God. We can't see that. But in having and this is very hard to explain, but maybe the easiest way to think about it is to think about it in terms of the social media filter bubbles we have now. If, which we didn't have when I went through grad school. There were other things, but it wasn't, algorithmically built echo chambers. But when the media that I consume is telling me a certain thing, and the friends that I have are consuming the same media, and the reality out there is open to a myriad of interpretations, and the media is telling me this, and my friends are telling me this, and then I'm taking this and I'm telling my friends this, and recommending other media that's telling them this, pretty soon you have a world that is entirely self-logical, if I can make up a word, and sensible, but may or may not be connected to, again, God's objective truth at all. So those are the meaning ones that we're talking about. There's a whole side. There are a lot of tangents you can go off to, sidetracks that are a lot of fun that lean in on this, and they're going to be the ones, over in the world of like English and lit crit stuff that I don't know. You've got like mythologies and Barta, in mythologies. You've got Joseph Campbell. For better or worse, you have Jordan Peterson making an attempt at that nowadays. Better or worse, because he definitely got himself tangled up in in the red blue culture wars. There's a discussion of the Star Wars trilogy, because that was explicitly written off of some of Campbell's work, by my understanding. And then even when you get over into marketing, there's or political spin, there's an understanding that in order to get people to know things, you need to get them to understand your story. So you try and convince somebody of something, you give them a story. There's even McKinsey, the famous consultants. There's a McKinsey method to writing research reports, believe it or not. And what are they trying to do? They're trying to, build a narrative, build a story. All of that focus on story and narrative in all of these other disciplines is a result of that meaning making that we're talking about. And if you are effective at building your story, then you could influence the culture and end up selling a million of whatever it is you're trying to sell. So yes, hopefully you like this section. I really love this section, and we will spend some time on all three of those individually, and any others that I happen to think of between now and whenever we do the next video. All right, thank you, everybody. We'll see ya.